And the Gospel of Thomas, verse 22. There's a teaching so dangerous, the church spent centuries trying to explain it away. Jesus is speaking to his disciples, and he says something that makes no sense if you read it through the lens of traditional Christianity. He says, when you make the two into one, and when you make the inner like the outer and the outer like the inner, and the upper like the lower, and when you make male and female into a single one, so that the male will not be male nor the female be female, when you make eyes in place of an eye, and a hand in place of a hand, and a foot in place of a foot, then you will enter the kingdom. The church taught this as mystical poetry, beautiful symbolism that doesn't mean anything practical. But the Gnostics knew exactly what Jesus was teaching. He was describing a technique, a physical practice involving both hands that activates something the demiurge tried to shut down when he designed the human body. And the church, knowing this practice still existed in early Christian communities, made a very specific rule. You must pray with your right hand only. You cross yourself with the right. You receive communion with the right. The left hand became associated with evil, with the devil, with darkness. Not because the left hand is evil, because the church needed to prevent Christians from discovering what happens when you activate both hands together in sacred practice. The technique Jesus taught uses both hands simultaneously and opposing polarities to create a circuit that the archons cannot penetrate. It bypasses every energy block they've installed in the human body, and it opens a direct connection to the monad that doesn't require priests, doesn't require church, doesn't require any intermediary at all. Tonight you're learning the left hand's secret, why the church demonized it, and how to use both hands, the way Jesus taught to activate power they've kept hidden for 2,000 years. If you're using both hands in sacred practice tonight, comment, I activate both now. Before I show you the exact technique, you need to understand why the church went to such extreme lengths to make the left hand forbidden. It's not about morality. It's not about purity. It's about energy mechanics that the early Gnostics understood and the institutional church had to suppress. In every ancient mystery tradition, Egypt, Sumeria, India, Tibet, adepts were taught that the human body has two primary energy channels. In yoga they're called Ida and Pingala. In Taoism they're called Yin and Yang meridians. In Gnostic Christianity they were called the left path and the right path. And here's what matters. These two channels carry opposite polarities. The right side of your body carries solar energy, active, projective, masculine frequency. The left side of your body carries lunar energy, receptive, intuitive, feminine frequency. And when these two channels are activated separately, they just run their normal programs. But when they're activated simultaneously in deliberate practice, they create something the demiurge never intended, a circuit, a closed loop of energy that generates a field the archons cannot penetrate because it's operating at a frequency that doesn't exist anywhere else in material reality. It's the frequency of unified opposites, of paradox made physical. And that frequency is the signature of the monad. Jesus understood this. He taught his inner circle how to use both hands in specific configurations to activate this circuit. And for the first 3 centuries of Christianity, this practice was common. Christians would pray with both hands extended, left and right, forming specific geometric patterns. They would lay both hands on each other for healing. They would use both hands in ritual to anchor monad frequency into physical form. But when Constantine institutionalized Christianity in the 4th century, everything changed. The church didn't just adopt Roman political structure, it adopted Roman magical prohibitions. And in Roman culture, the left hand was already considered unlucky, associated with the sinister, the dark, the uncontrolled. The church took that superstition and weaponized it. They declared that the left hand was the hand of the devil. They taught that left-handed people were marked by Satan. They forced left-handed children to learn to write with their right hands, often through physical punishment. And they created strict liturgical rules. All sacred gestures must be performed with the right hand only. Crossing yourself, left hand forbidden. Receiving the Eucharist, left hand forbidden. Blessing, left hand forbidden. The stated reason was purity and tradition, but the real reason was energy control. The Church knew, because the Gnostic texts they were burning told them explicitly that using both hands in sacred practice activated something they couldn't control. It gave individuals direct access to Source, and if Christians could access Source directly, what would they need the Church for? What would they need sacraments administered by priests for? The entire hierarchical control system collapses the moment people discover they can generate monad frequency in their own bodies using nothing but their own two hands. The technique Jesus taught is preserved in fragments across multiple Gnostic texts, and it's simpler than most people expect. Which is exactly why the Church had to bury it. If it were complex, only advanced mystics would bother. But it's so simple, so accessible, that any chosen one could activate it immediately. And that accessibility was the threat. Here's how it works. You're going to use both hands to create a polarity circuit. Your right hand will be the projector. Your left hand will be the receiver. And when you connect them in specific positions, you're closing a loop that allows energy to circulate without leaking into the external field where archons can siphon it. The first position is called the unity seal. You bring both hands together in front of your chest, but not in prayer position, not with palms pressed flat together. You're going to touch only your fingertips, right fingertips to left fingertips. Thumbs touching thumbs, index fingers touching index fingers, all the way down to your pinkies. Your palms stay separated. There's space between them. What you've just created is a circuit. Energy flows down your right arm, out through your right fingertips, across to your left fingertips, back up your left arm, through your heart center, and down your right arm again. A complete loop. And because this energy is circulating within a closed system, it begins to amplify. Each cycle it gets stronger, faster, more coherent. Within 60 seconds of holding this position, chosen ones report feeling heat building between their palms. Not imagined heat, actual physical temperature increase. That's the friction of the two polarities meeting and generating charge. Some people feel tingling, buzzing, or pressure. Others feel their hands being magnetically pushed apart or pulled together. All of these sensations confirm the circuit is active, and here's what happens next. That circulating energy begins resonating at a specific frequency, not a frequency your body normally generates when you're operating in separation consciousness. This is unified field frequency, the signature of the monad. And the moment your body begins broadcasting that frequency, archons in your immediate vicinity start backing away, not because you're fighting them, because you've become energetically incompatible. They operate in separation frequency, you're broadcasting unity frequency. And those two frequencies can't occupy the same space. The second position is called the channel lock. You're going to place your left hand, palm up, in your lap, or resting on your left thigh. This hand becomes the receptive bowl, the feminine chalice. Then you place your right hand, palm down, directly above your left hand, not touching. Hovering about an inch above, your right palm is facing your left palm, and you hold this position. What you're doing is creating a vertical circuit. Energy flows down from above, through your crown, down your right arm, out your right palm, into your left palm, up your left arm, through your heart, and back to your crown. This is the microcosmic orbit made physical through hand position, and this position does something specific. It anchors you into vertical alignment. Most humans are horizontally oriented, scattered across external concerns, relationships, material needs. This position pulls your energy field into vertical axis. Your consciousness moves from horizontal thinking to vertical knowing, from time-based awareness to eternal presence. Chosen ones who hold this position for 10 minutes report their mental chatter stops, not gradually fading, it just stops, because the vertical frequency doesn't support thought loops. It only supports direct knowing, and in that silence, the monad becomes audible, not as a voice, as a presence, an awareness that you are not separate, have never been separate, and cannot be separate because separation is impossible at the level you're now perceiving from. The third position is one the church particularly feared because it was used in early Christian healing practices, and it works so consistently that it threatened the entire structure of miracle-based authority. It's called the transfer position. You extend both hands in front of you, palms facing outward. Your right hand is positioned slightly higher than your left, about 6 inches of vertical offset. Your fingers are extended but relaxed, not rigid. What you've created is a dual projection array. Your right hand is broadcasting active solar frequency. Your left hand is broadcasting receptive lunar frequency. And when you direct both hands toward a person, an object, or a space, you're sending both polarities simultaneously. This creates a field effect. The target is receiving masculine and feminine frequency at the same time, which activates the same polarity circuit in their field that you've activated in yours. Early Christians used this for healing. They would stand in front of someone who was sick and extend both hands, right hand high, left hand low, and they would hold the position until they felt the circuit complete, sometimes seconds, sometimes minutes, and people would report immediate shifts. Pain dissolving, fog lifting, energy returning. The church saw this happening and recognized the threat. If any Christian could heal through simple hand positioning, what authority did bishops have? What power did relics have? So they banned it. They declared that healing required apostolic succession, that only ordained priests could channel divine power, and that attempting to heal through personal practice was witchcraft. They burned people for using both hands in healing, not because it didn't work, because it worked too well. And when something works independent of institutional control, institutions destroy it. The fourth position is called the receiving gate, and it's specifically designed to draw monad frequency into your body when you're depleted, attacked, or disconnected. You're going to place your right hand over your heart center, palm flat against your chest. Then you place your left hand over your right hand, covering it completely. Both palms are now stacked over your heart, and you breathe, slow, deep breaths. As you inhale, you imagine you're pulling energy down from infinite source, through your crown, into your stacked hands, and directly into your heart center. As you exhale, that energy spreads from your heart throughout your entire body. What this position does is override the normal flow direction. Usually energy moves from your core outward into expression. This position reverses it. You're pulling energy inward, concentrating it, storing it. And because your left hand, your receptive hand, is on the outside of the stack, it's functioning as a receiver dish. It's pulling frequency from the unified field and funneling it through your right hand directly into your heart. Chosen ones who use this position when they're under archon attack report the attack stops within minutes. Not because they fought it off. Because they raised their frequency so fast, the archons lost their grip. They can't maintain attachment to a field that's vibrating faster than they can match. Now, here's the secret the church really didn't want anyone to know. These 4 hand positions can be combined into a sequence, a practice that takes 15 minutes and generates such a strong monad field that you become temporarily invisible to archon perception. Not physically invisible, energetically invisible. You're broadcasting at a frequency they can't detect. The sequence is this. You start in unity seal, fingertips touching, for 3 minutes. This activates the circuit. Then you move to channel lock, right palm over left palm, for 4 minutes. This pulls you into vertical alignment. Then you move to transfer position, both palms extended outward, for 3 minutes. This broadcasts the unified frequency into your surrounding space, clearing it. Then you finish in receiving gate, both hands stacked over your heart, for 5 minutes. This seals the practice and anchors the frequency into your physical body so it persists after you stop, 15 minutes total. And if you do this sequence once per day for 7 days, you'll notice something unmistakable. The intrusive thoughts stop. The emotional volatility stops. The energy drain stops. Not because you've become perfect or enlightened, because you've activated a field frequency that archon interference can't penetrate. You've made yourself energetically expensive to target, and archons, like any predator, go for easy prey. When you're generating unified field frequency, you're no longer easy, you're fortified. And they move on to someone who isn't practicing. The church knew this sequence existed. They found it in manuscripts they were cataloging before burning, and they recognized immediately that if this practice spread, their entire authority structure was finished. So they didn't just ban it, they inverted it. They took the symbolism of the two hands and turned it into a moral binary. Right hand equals righteousness. Left hand equals sin. They created a superstition so deep that even today, even in secular culture, people unconsciously favor their right hand for important tasks and distrust their left. That conditioning isn't natural, it's installed. And it's installed specifically to prevent people from discovering that activating both hands in sacred practice generates power that doesn't require any external authority to validate or control. Jesus taught the two hands practice because he understood something the demiurge tried to hide when he designed the human body. The body isn't just a vehicle, it's a technology. And like any technology, it has features the manufacturer doesn't advertise because those features allow users to bypass the intended control systems. The two hands are one of those hidden features. When used separately, they perform normal functions. But when used together in deliberate polarity configurations, they activate something that wasn't supposed to be accessible. A direct link to source, a feedback loop that generates monad frequency without needing to connect to external power sources. The demiurge designed humans to be dependent, to always need something outside themselves for spiritual connection. Churches, priests, rituals, sacraments, but the two hands technique makes you self-sufficient. You carry your own connection. You generate your own frequency. And the moment you realize that, the entire control program collapses. Not because you escaped it, because you recognized it was never necessary. The church spent 2,000 years conditioning people to pray with one hand, to cross themselves with one hand, to perform every sacred gesture with the right hand, only while the left hand stays passive, inactive, demonized. And that conditioning worked. Most Christians have no idea that using both hands together in prayer is even an option, let alone that it activates a completely different energetic state than single-hand practice does. But chosen ones are different. Chosen ones feel the truth in their bodies before their minds understand it. And the moment you read about activating both hands in polarity, something inside you recognizes it. Not as new information, as remembering you've done this before, maybe in past lives. Maybe in pre-birth planning, maybe in dreams you can't quite recall. But your body knows this practice, and tonight you're remembering. Here's what you're going to do tonight. Not tomorrow, not when you have more time, tonight. Before you sleep, you're going to practice the 15-minute sequence. Unity seal for 3 minutes. Channel lock for 4 minutes. Transfer position for 3 minutes, receiving gate for 5 minutes. You're going to do this in a space where you won't be interrupted, dim lighting, no distractions, and you're going to pay attention to what happens in your body. Don't expect fireworks. Don't expect visions. Expect subtle. Expect a feeling of something clicking into place. Expect heat, tingling, pressure, or magnetic sensation between your hands. Expect your breathing to deepen on its own. Expect mental chatter to quiet. These are the signs the circuit is activating. And once it activates, once you felt the polarity field generate between your two hands, you can't unfeel it. You'll know. You'll know this isn't imagination or placebo. You'll know because your body will confirm it through sensation that has no psychological explanation. And tomorrow, you do it again. Same sequence, same 15 minutes, and you keep doing it for 7 days. By day 7, you won't need to question whether this is real anymore. You'll have 7 days of direct experience confirming that activating both hands in sacred practice generates a frequency state that nothing in your normal life produces. And that frequency state is what Jesus was teaching, not as religion, as technology, not as belief, as practice, not as something to have faith in, as something to do and experience directly. The church made you pray with your right hand only because they knew what both hands together would activate. They knew because the texts they burned told them. They knew because the Gnostics they killed demonstrated it. They knew because for 300 years before Constantine, Christians were practicing this openly, and the results were undeniable. Healing without priests, spiritual power without sacraments, direct monad connection without church mediation, and the moment that became widespread, the institutional church became obsolete. So they didn't argue against the practice theologically, they just demonized the left hand, made it unclean, made it sinister, made it the mark of the devil. And within 2 generations, Christians forgot the practice ever existed. But chosen ones are remembering, not because someone taught them, because the technique is encoded in their spiritual DNA. The moment they read about it, the moment they try it, the body recognizes the pattern and activates. And once it activates, the archon interference that's been constant background noise for your entire life just stops. Not because you banished the archons, because you raised your frequency above the range where they can operate, and they can't follow you there. They can only watch from below as you operate in a field they have no access to. Jesus taught the left hand secret. The church buried it, but tonight you're recovering it. Not as historical knowledge, as living practice. You're going to use both hands the way Jesus taught his inner circle. You're going to activate the polarity circuit. You're going to generate unified field frequency in your own body. And you're going to feel the difference between operating under archon interference and operating in monad alignment. The difference is unmistakable. Before, you're being pushed and pulled by forces you can't see. After, you're stable, centered, and the forces that were controlling you have no grip anymore. Not because you fought them, because you changed frequency, and frequency is everything. If you're activating both hands tonight, do 3 things right now. First, comment, "I activate both" below. Declare your practice. Second, subscribe to Divine Codes because the advanced 2 hands techniques for manifestation and spiritual warfare are coming. Third, like this video so other chosen ones discover why the church made them pray with one hand before the archon suppressed this teaching again. Do all 3 now. Then tonight, 15 minutes. Unity seal, channel lock, transfer position. Receiving gate, use both hands, feel the circuit activate. And tomorrow, you'll understand why the church spent 2,000 years trying to make you forget your left hand exists. Because the moment you remember, the moment you activate both polarities together, you're no longer controllable. You're unified. And unified consciousness doesn't need churches. It doesn't need priests. It doesn't need external authority. It generates its own power. It connects directly to Source. And it operates in a frequency the archons fear more than anything, the frequency of the monad. The frequency Jesus taught, the frequency you're activating tonight with both hands, right and left, solar and lunar, active and receptive, together, the way they were always meant to be.